Hello everyone, as you know, my name is Daniel Fernandez. I am the owner of scienceinhydroponics.com, and today I will be doing a video on pyrethrins. So first of all, I'm going to be doing an introduction on pyrethrins, what they are, where they are found, and how are they used. I'm then going to talk a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages of pyrethrins. We'll then move on to the effectiveness of pyrethrins as insecticides, how they work and how they don't work. And finally, I'm gonna give you some tips and some guidelines about how to properly use pyrethrins. Remember that there will be timestamps in the description for all of these different sections. Pyrethrins are a group of naturally occurring chemical compounds. So it's not a single pyrethrin, there are many different pyrethrins, and they share the same chemical core, which you can see here. This core is what gives pyrethrins most of their chemical properties and definitely their insecticidal properties. Pyrethrins occur naturally in plants like chrysanthemums, but they also occur naturally in several different plants, although chrysanthemums are the plants where pyrethrins are most commonly extracted from. In these plants, you usually find these 6 different molecules, which all share the pyrethrin chemical motif. Bear in mind that this chemical core, the pyrethrin core, has been modified to generate synthetic molecules which do not occur naturally. And these molecules that are synthetic are commonly referred to as pyrethroids. So pyrethrin are naturally occurring compounds, while pyrethroids are their synthetic analogs, which are molecules that share the same core but have been modified so that they can achieve different properties. Now let's talk a little bit about the advantages of using pyrethrins. So pyrethrins have a great property as an insecticide, and it's that the toxicity to insects is much larger than the toxicity to mammals or other animals. For insects, pyrethrins are very highly toxic. Very small amounts will kill them, while mammals and warm-blooded animals in general tolerate much higher concentrations. Pyrethrins are still quite toxic to mammals, so you need to be careful whenever you are doing applications to wear proper PPE. It's not that they are not toxic, that's a myth. Pyrethrins are quite toxic to mammals and to humans, so proper PPE is absolutely necessary. Another advantage of pyrethrins is that they, although toxic, degrade very rapidly in the environment. And this will also come as a disadvantage later on, but it is an advantage in the sense that pyrethrins have very short lifetime in the environment. For some of these pyrethrin molecules, even just a few hours. So pyrethrins are very effectively destroyed by UV light. That's the main mechanism by which pyrethrins are degraded in the environment. However, they are also chemically sensitive. They oxidize quite easily, so they do not last in the environment. This is a big advantage because contamination by pyrethrins is naturally low because they just don't last for a very long time. Another advantage of pyrethrins is that they are toxic to a wide variety of insects. They are mainly toxic because they are neurotoxic to the insects, meaning that they affect the nerve signaling in the insect's body. So insects are basically paralyzed and killed by the molecules. They are a contact insecticide, which means that the pyrethrins need to actually be in physical contact with the insect. And the concentrations at which pyrethrins are effective will be different depending on the species of insect. However, a wide variety of them are affected by the pyrethrins because of how generic this signaling path is. Since they affect the sodium channels in cells, these are very widely spread among insects, and very few of them have highly effective defenses against pyrethrins. So at some concentration, pyrethrins will be effective for almost any insect you can think of. Of course, the concentrations can become high enough to not be economical, but for the most part, applications can be made to manage many insect populations. Pyrethrins have several different advantages though. The first disadvantage that they suffer from is that they are very toxic to aquatic life. So they, although last for a very short period of time, they are quite highly toxic. So if you dump significant amounts of pyrethrins, they can harm the environment substantially. Another disadvantage, which is a pretty significant disadvantage, is that since pyrethrins are very sensitive, you need to be very careful with your applications, meaning that you need to apply pyrethrins right as soon as you prepare them. Any pyrethrum foliar spray, for example, that you prepare will decompose fairly quickly. So if you leave a bunch of foliar spray prepared and don't spray it for even several hours, then those pyrethrins can be degraded by a very significant percentage. For this reason, you need to be very aware of the age of the pyrethrum products that you're buying, and always ensure when you're spraying that you prepare all the amount that you're going to use in your spray. Now let's talk a little bit about pyrethrum products. There are several different characteristics that are important in pyrethrum products. Mostly you need to be aware of two important things. The first is that pyrethroids and pyrethrins are different, so you must search for products that have pyrethrins if you're interested in just using the naturally occurring compounds. Some products that say they contain only pyrethrins actually do get pyrethroids added to them unscrupulously to increase the effectiveness of the product. So if you're using a product that you've never tested that has pyrethrins in it, you should have it lab tested if you absolutely do not want to have any of these pyrethroids in the product, just to make sure that they're not there. Additionally, there is also a molecule which is an adjuvant and a helper molecule. It's a molecule that enhances the effectiveness of pyrethrins and pyrethroids, which is called piperonil butoxide, PBO. PBO is a molecule that is not an insecticide by itself, but it is used because it interferes with the defense mechanisms that some insects have for pyrethrins. So it greatly enhances the effectiveness of certain pyrethrin insecticides. It is very common for pyrethrin-containing insecticides to have very, very large amounts of PBO. Contrary to pyrethrins, PBO does not degrade quickly. PBO has a much longer half-life in the environment, and for this reason, if you apply a pyrethrin insecticide that contains PBO, or if you use a fogger or something like that, that PBO will remain for far longer than the pyrethrins. If you are very interested in not having any pesticide present, for example, at the time of harvesting your crops, then you must be aware that PBO is not a good thing. Another thing that can happen is that pyrethrins products can have a lot of other molecules added to them to enhance their effectiveness. These can often be to their detriment. So, for example, there are several products that contain pyrethrins and neem oil or acidaractin. So this is with the purpose of enhancing the effectiveness of pyrethrin. Acidaractin or neem is not an insecticide in the sense that it does not kill insects, but it interferes with their growing cycle. However, if you have pyrethrin and neem, the chemical interaction between them can cause some degradation of the pyrethrins as a function of time. And this is why some of these products that are neem plus pyrethrin will be less effective than a sole pyrethrin based product at the same concentration, because some of the pyrethrin has degraded in the presence of the acidaractin. So since the acidaractin is not pure but is usually contained within a lot of additional substances present in neem oil, there are several potential side reactions that can happen between these other products and the pyrethrin. For this reason, I prefer products that only contain pyrethrin, and then if you want to make a spray that uses pyrethrin plus another product, I would recommend mixing those at the time of application instead of relying on a pre-mixed product. This is because pyrethrins are very sensitive, so you want pyrethrins to be in their pure state as long as possible. Now, pyrethrins can also be mixed with other things such as, for example, insecticidal soaps, and these will decompose far less than when mixed with something like neem. So if you want a mixed product to go, then a product that is mixed with insecticidal soaps is probably a better option. There are several products that contain only pyrethrin extract. For example, Pyganic is one of them. Evergreen Pyrethrum concentrate is another one of them. And you also have products like the Safer number 567, which is a pyrethrin product mixed with an insecticidal soap. In the realm of the products that contain pyrethrins plus acidoractin, you have mainly products like Assure, and you have a product like Safer and All. Now let's talk a little bit about the effectiveness of pyrethrins. Pyrethrins are, as I mentioned, very highly effective at some concentration. One of the advantages of pyrethrins is that the plants are pretty insensitive to them, as they are naturally occurring in many plants. Plants, they evolve to be safer for the plant. So you can apply pyrethrins at really high concentrations without having phytotoxic effects on the plants, which is good. However, very high concentrations are often not economical. So the question is, what is the effectiveness of the pyrethrins at their, let's say, label rates, at the rates that we get recommended to on the label? So there's a link on, there are several links on the description pointing to several different studies that examine the effectiveness of pyrethrins against several different insects, including several different types of beetles, whiteflies, and aphids. You will see within these studies that pyrethrins are often significantly effective against these insects, although the effectiveness at the application rates on the label are not extremely high. They are often not above 75%, and this is because of the fast degradation of pyrethrins that requires very full coverage and very frequent use for the insecticide to be effective. This is one of the main reasons why synthetic pyrethroids were developed, and it was because pyrethrins just degrade very fast. So they are not very economical, while synthetic pyrethroids like permethrin and similar synthetic pyrethroids will have much longer half-lives and will therefore be more economical as insecticides. Now let's talk a little bit about the application of pyrethrins and how you can best use pyrethrins. So first of all, as I mentioned it before, only mix the amounts that you're going to be using and mix them right before you spray. Do not mix and then leave a mixed foliar spray there. Always mix right before you're spraying. Second of all, it is absolutely critical for you not to spray pyrethrin either at sunrise or during the day or with any light present. So you will want to spray pyrethrins either under darkness or ideally under sunset, which is sunset, you know, in sunset there is a lot of additional Rayleigh scattering, so the amount of UV light is far lower than during the middle of the day. So spraying right at sunset is probably the best way to prevent the degradation of pyrethrins. If you are growing indoors, then you might turn your lights off or heavily dim them in order to reduce all the potential degradation of the pyrethrin. Third, this is a contact insecticide, so you need to make sure that you absolutely cover all surfaces that you want to treat. So it is absolutely critical for you to be extremely thorough with a pyrethrin spray, because if you are not thorough, then it will not do its job. And fourth, you need to do it frequently if you have an active pest. While pyrethrins can be good to keep the levels of insects down, it is if you have a pest pressure, if you have pest pressure present, if you have a pest that is taking over, then you need to spray quite frequently. The ideal spraying rates will differ, but normally you want to spray anywhere from every 48 to every 72 hours. So that you can ensure that the pest is gone. Pyrethrins will often affect more than one life stage of the pest, but often there are stages that are not affected by the pyrethrins at all, or to a much lesser extent. For example, the X stages are often pretty sturdy against pyrethrins. So if you just do 1 or 2 sprays and then you stop, the pest will just recover. So you will need to spray. If you have an active pest pressure, you will want to spray once, then wait 48 hours, spray again, then wait 48 hours, then spray again, as many times as it's necessary to get rid of the pest. Another thing is that since pyrethrins are so damaging to aquatic life, you do not want to have the plants be dripping a lot, which is important. Although you want full coverage of the plant, you do not want to absolutely shower the plant in pyrethrins, because that pyrethrin that goes down the drain or that stays on the floor might be toxic to either animals or people or anything that might be there for a short period of time. Another very important thing when applying pyrethrins is that although humans I haven't seen any fatalities from doing spraying of pyrethrins. I couldn't find any recorded instance. Let me know if you find any. It is true that some people are very, very allergic to pyrethrins, and it can lead to very uncomfortable situations for those people, because our allergy to pyrethrins can trigger and can last reportedly for weeks. So if you are gonna be making a pyrethrin spray, then make sure that the people who are doing the spray are not allergic to the pyrethrins, and make sure that anyone who's allergic will avoid coming into contact with the plants for at least the following 12 hours. Finally, another recommendation is, since the degradation is fast, there is not much time required between spraying with pyrethrins and harvesting, but for good measure, you should wait 7 days before you eat anything from a plant that has been sprayed with pyrethrins, just to be safe and make sure that only a very, very low amount of pyrethrins, if any, will be present on the plant. Normally, pyrethrins, depending on the exact molecular structure, will degrade between, the half-life is somewhere between 6 and 24 hours. So after 3 days, only a very minimal amount of pyrethrin will be there. If you look at some of the papers that we cited on the description, you'll see that fewer than 0.01% of the pyrethrins are present after 3 days. So very, very little is present if you allow enough time to pass, which is a big advantage of the pyrethrins, as I mentioned before. Now, I hope you enjoyed this introduction to pyrethrins. Of course, pyrethrins are a very extensive group of molecules, although only 6 are mainly present in plants in large quantities. There are many potential variations, even more if you include pyrethroids as a potential class of insecticides. I hope you find this useful, and I hope you can add some of these pyrethrins as part of your IPM programs if you're not doing already, since they are a very safe option relative to other potentially used insecticides, and they can be used very, very effectively with other products that are not actual contact insecticides, like for example neem. Please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one, and bye bye.